Hello, and welcome to the first live conversation of Citizens for a Better Oxnard. My name is Manuel Herrea, the creator of this page. Joining me on the panel today will be Elidet Bordon, one of our moderators here at Citizens for a Better Oxnard, and creator and host of Oxnard Live, Daniel Chávez Jr. So this is how it's going to work. I'm going to start the questioning, followed by Elidet, and then followed by Daniel. So our guest today is none other than Oxnard City Manager, Mr. Alex Nguyen. And we will be touching on many of the topics that are hot on the minds of our Oxnard residents. Mr. Nguyen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and providing this forum. I'm looking forward to this.
All right, great. Well, let's get this started. So, if I'm not mistaken, this month marks 3 years that you have been our city manager. I will be asking you a couple of questions regarding that. The first question is, why Oxnard? I mean, I'm sure you did the research and saw that Oxnard was in a financial mess, and yet you still wanted to apply for the job. Why?
Interesting question. I think the easiest answer is in my profession, if you want to be a city manager, Oxnard presents all of the interesting challenges you can have. And I did do the research, and I was very aware of the slew of problems that the city had been in and that was struggling to overcome. But for a city manager, these are the kinds of things you'd like to do. You want to fix things, you want to help make things better, you want to implement city council policy. And the community has all the elements of becoming a great city. So that's primarily why I'm here, and I have to tell you, I'm not disappointed at all. I know many people may be disappointed with me, but I'm not disappointed about this experience. It's great.
Actually, it's a great segue to my next question. People are going to think we already rehearsed this, but some people call you the villain because you tried to close the PAC, the Colonial Library, the Southside Fire Station. You laid off a bunch of people, and yet some people say you're doing a great job and that there's finally light at the end of the tunnel. So which is it? Are you the good guy? Are you the bad guy? Or which guy are you?
I'm the city manager.
Okay, and
so my job is ultimately to implement the city council's policies, right? They're the elected officials. They represent all of us, all of you. I say us because I live here too. And my job is to implement those policies in the most effective, efficient, and cost-efficient ways. And sometimes that means we're going to have to do things that make some people unhappy, right? You can't make everybody happy all the time. But when I came here and in my first year and I made the assessment, it was very obvious to me some of those actions needed to be taken. And frankly, they should have been taken many, many years prior. So yeah, sometimes you have to make difficult decisions that upset a lot of people, but it doesn't mean they're not necessary.
I know that a lot of people blame you for a lot of the problems. What they don't understand, and that's why I brought up the fact that you've only been here 3 years, is that you inherited this mess. So in your eyes, how are things going now? I mean, it's been 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
We did go through this COVID situation. There was a lot of lost revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So how are things going now?
So let me start by saying that after 3 years, there is much more good news in Oxnard than there is bad news in Oxnard. Doesn't mean we've gotten over everything or that we've fixed everything. There's still some bad news around City Hall that we need to take care of, but there's much more good news. But let me just summarize the 3 years. I mean, year one, right, my first year, and Manny, you'll remember, because actually you, Daniel, you were there too, I think, the night that I was sworn in. And yeah, the night I was sworn in, Manny comes and swears at me. It was great. But in my first year, I started the week or so after the council had passed the budget. And in that first year, I discovered that the city was really had a structural deficit. And also, when I joined, about half of the executive team was vacant, in the sense that I didn't have permanent directors. There were either vacant and or interim directors. So lots of organizational challenges from the get-go. And also in year one, just learning the council, learning how to work with them, starting to learn the community. That's an ongoing process. I'm still learning a lot of things about our community. So by the end of that, in my second year, is when I had to present what was my first budget to the city council. And this is what you're referring to, that recommended $9.2 million in cuts. And so, yeah, we had to make major cuts. There were closures, especially to some of the popular amenities, facilities, and we had to make layoffs. And the council was able to get through about 2/3 of that. Year three was overshadowed by the pandemic. And I'm very proud of the city staff and how everyone pulled through that year. I mean, overall, our staff, they rose to the occasion. Nobody panicked. Nobody walked off the job. Everyone understood the risk, and everyone kept showing up to get this community through the worst of the pandemic. Mind you, we're not out of it yet. And then this coming year is what I call the first year of Measure E. So overall, a lot of good things, believe it or not, a lot of good things have happened over the last 3 years that as a team, between the leadership of the city council, the talent that I've been fortunate to have with the executive team, and the work ethic of the city staff, we've made a lot of progress in the last 3 years. So I'm really very optimistic, both about City Hall improving and about the community improving and getting better in the next few years. So I'm really optimistic. Things are good.
Okay, we'll be asking you about Measure E and so forth. So, but let's move this right along. And Elidet.
Hi, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us. I've been scouring a lot of the concerns that the group members have regarding a lot of the issues that you're dealing with. And I just want to clarify for everybody that you, as you stated, you implement city council's policies. So you only have so much power over all these things, because at the end of the day, we voted for city council, and city council has to make a decision on all these things. So you have certain power, and people keep blaming you for things that in essence started with the community. One of the things that we keep going back to is, and we'll talk about this later, about mellow rules, LMDs, CFDs, and Measure E. So I want to talk about, a lot of people keep bringing up South Oxnard in the comments. They keep bringing up, why does that feel more neglected than River Park, than Wagon Wheel? And it goes back a lot to, they have these mellow rules. But now that Measure E has passed, are we going to see some more attention being paid to South Oxnard, or some of the youth programs, a lot of these things that went away because of budget cuts, and then now they were hit hard because of the pandemic? Mm-hmm. So what can we expect now that things, hopefully they're turning up? What can we expect to see a little bit more progress with some of these funds coming in that we're going to start seeing this year?
Okay, there was a lot in that question. So do you want me to break this down? Do you want, you talked a little bit about the South Side, you talked about services and programs, Measure E.
South Side and the youth programs would be the priority.
Okay, so South Side. So ever since I arrived here, I've heard from many segments of the community that South Oxnard has been neglected over the years. So historically, I can't speak to that. I don't know exactly how Oxnard history unfolded, going back 10, 20 years. All I can tell you is what I can observe So it's obvious to me that the south part of the city needs more focused attention. And I'm really glad to say that is beginning to happen. So if you look at the budget and what we recommended in the city council's 5-year priorities and what we're doing with Measure E, I think, and although I haven't looked at it in terms of examining the data, but just from a superficial review of prior budgets, I think what we're doing now presents the most focused attention that South Oxnard has gotten from City Hall in a long time. And I think if you review budget documents, say over the last 10 or 15 years, you might agree with that. So the other things though that are important to remember is there are certain things that City Hall can do, and then there are things that other government institutions have to do, right? So we're not the school district, we're not the county, and we're not the state, and we're not the healthcare community, and so on. And we're certainly not the private sector, right? We're not the McDonald's of the world or the Amazons of the world. I'm sure that's going to come up too, or Target or anyone else, or 7-Eleven or anyone else. So economics actually plays a very, very powerful role in our society. This is the USA, and capitalism is our way. So people need to pause and understand that economics also matters. So when I hear things like why don't we have nicer department stores or stores in South Oxnard, that comes down to economics. And there's one thing that's pretty fundamental about what City Hall can and can't do, and that is this. We have much, much more authority to say to a private investor where they can't go. Now, we have to have legal reasons as to why, but you have almost no authority to tell them where to go. In other words, I can never make Apple open a store here at Oxnard. Right now, however, if Apple wanted to try to open a store on the top of Plaza Park, I can tell them, no, you can't do that. Right? That's a very simplistic way to frame that. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is being realistic about where this community is at. Like, who are we really, and what are we doing, and what are we able to do right now? In addition to having goals and vision for what we want going forward in the future, and where we want to take the community. And that's where, again, if you look at the city council's priorities, you can see they have a clear policy direction and vision to making the city better. But when you're looking at the south side, a couple things we have to be realistic about is where everyone is at in terms of, people always fuss about bringing better jobs, but I would argue there are lots of good jobs here in the city of Oxnard. What I contend is, what is the employability factor of our residents? What jobs are they able to apply for and get, right? And a lot of that has to do with education attainment as well as training. And then the other thing to keep in mind is being aware of the path of gentrification. So I'm not a big supporter in having City Hall engineer gentrification. At the same time, as an observer of history, I understand that gentrification can happen on its own, and actually always is happening. Sometimes it's slow, and sometimes it's a little bit faster, and sometimes it's forced when it's engineered. So my goal is, how do we make improvements for our community without displacing our community? Because in the end, when you start making things better, and it takes a lot, right? City Hall can't do it alone. But when things start getting better, property values start rising. And when property values start rising, so do rents, right? So the question is, how do we make improvements simultaneously so that our residents aren't pushed out if rents go up? Right. That's something that's really it's one of my core values, is how to make this community better without gentrifying our own residents out of here.
Mr.
It's not
Nguyen.
easy, it's complex, but I have ideas of how we get there.
Okay.
Sorry,
Well,
that answer was too long. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I'm sorry for interrupting here, but my question then is, now I know you know, you're probably going to talk about the Zocalo, which is good because we want to hear about that. But what else can the city do to entice more businesses to go on the south side? Because like you just said, you can't force them, you can't make them open up shops on the south side,
Right.
but you can entice them, can't you? And you know, what the people on the south side want is, you know, they want to be able to shop over there and not have to drive all the way to the north. It's like we want stuff on our side too. So what can the city do? What can you do to make that happen?
Well, so this is where it gets back to economics, right? Like I said, I have almost all the authority in the world to say to a private investment where they can't go. Again, it has to be for good, sound legal reasons, but I can't tell them where to go because it all comes down to the demographics and the dollars. And they're going to go where they believe they can turn a profit. Now, and that's the actual bottom line. But there are nuanced things within your question that I believe the government and City Hall can do. We can make the work to continue to improve public safety, which we actually do a good job at in Oxnard. Our police department does a fantastic job. And I say that confidently because our crime has actually been going down year after year. And you have to also compare us to American cities of our size to compare how we're doing. And when you do that, you'll see that we are doing, our department in our community is doing actually a very good job. We can make the public infrastructure better, right? So if you're looking at the Savior's Corridor as an example, making the sidewalks better, making the lighting better, making it feel more inviting, especially feel safer at night, making it more walkable, providing the kinds of crosswalks in that corridor that you see in other big cities that are designed for a lot of people crossing safely. So there are things we can do better, and that's part of what we're working on. But in the end, you're not gonna get other businesses to come if they don't believe they can find qualified employees, right? And I also am not interested in bringing or enticing. By the way, there's not a whole lot left local governments can do to entice business investment in terms of tax incentives or anything like that. Redevelopment in California ended a decade ago or so. So we can't do those things anymore. So we don't give tax cuts. We don't give any kind of other breaks on fees or anything like that. That would be foolish. So what we have to do is focus on getting our residents more employable, because there are already lots of good companies here, but we have a lot of people who come into our city to take some of these good jobs, and we have a lot of our residents leaving the city for both good jobs and not so good jobs, right? So there is a balance there. And again, I'm not opposed to, and we're constantly working on attracting business, but my concern is when the new business comes, they're bringing their employees, right? I want to focus on getting our residents better paying jobs, and especially jobs, hopefully, that have healthcare.
And then to go back to that point, you bring up a good point about being employable. And one of the great things about Oxnard and Ventura County in general, and I'm not sure if a lot of our residents know that, but students graduating high school actually qualify to get access to local community college here in Ventura County. And a lot of people were not aware. I actually spent this week telling my nieces, telling everybody, hey, when you graduate, you could go to 2 years of, your community college, transferred to CSUCI. So it looks like we have the educational roadmap to get, people educated, to get them those paying jobs, because we have big companies like Haas, we have them here, we have St. John's, we have a lot of these companies that require these higher paying jobs. And what's happening, as you mentioned, all these higher rents, people are coming in from other cities, taking those jobs. And now not only can our people not apply for them, they can't pay the rent here either. So in terms of that, one of the most vulnerable in that city when it comes to that, not everybody can work, right? So now we have the opposite. We have our homeless situation, people that are not housed. We used to go to Plaza Park all the time, and now it's just becoming, a lot of homeless people, this is like their safety net, and it's not enough for us to say we need to move them, right? Now that we have Measure E and we have, it looks like our economy is getting a little bounce back. What are some of the things that we're doing for the unhoused population in Oxnard? These are the people that may not be able to work. Maybe they have mental health issues. Maybe they're not high school kids, but what can we do to set the most vulnerable so even the most vulnerable have a leg up at the city of Oxnard?
Okay, so now we're entering the discussion about the homeless crisis, and I know I've said this a lot before, but it bears repeating a few facts about this. So the homeless crisis is throughout California, and in fact, it's throughout the West Coast. It exists in a lot of cities in the country, but for various reasons, the West Coast has it the worst. And as of 2019, California had about a quarter of the homeless population. So, and people are aware of this when you see how bad it has been for so very long in cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, San Diego. Most recently, we see a lot of it in the news just nearby in Venice. So I say that to remind everyone, this is a statewide crisis. This is not an Oxnard crisis, right? So just keeping perspective. But within the context of Oxnard, I'm really proud of the progress that we've made just in the last few years alone. And I'm particularly grateful to the leadership of our housing director, Emilio Ramirez, and his staff. So for those of you who've been following the homeless issues in Oxnard over the years, you probably remember this. Up until only a few years ago, Oxnard actually did very little in terms of direct services to the homeless. And to be fair, so did most cities in California, right? Prior to a few years ago, Oxnard, we primarily managed grants, pass-through grants from the state and federal government to a couple of nonprofits working with the homeless community. And all Oxnard did as a city was we would open the winter warming shelter, right? So that's a part-time gig. And for a while there, my understanding is we were trading off with the city of Ventura. One year they would open it in the winter, and the next year we would, going back and forth. But obviously, the homeless crisis exploded in so many other dimensions in the last 10 years across the state. And so in the last few years, we've opened, for the first time in Oxnard history, the year-round 24-hour permanent shelter, right? And that has 110 beds. So we started that a couple of years ago. Again, first time in the city's history. We've also since then implemented a street outreach team. We have we coordinate with Backpack Medicine with the county to go out and do outreach. We coordinate within our housing authority to administer housing vouchers for homeless individuals and families. These are things the city's never done before. We worked proactively to mitigate homeless encampments. We have a good partnership with the county one of the few silver linings that came out of this pandemic is that the state finally started providing funds directly to cities to combat homelessness. And I don't know if you remember, or if you saw even, I think it was my first year here, I submitted a letter to the editor in the VC Star complaining about how the state was withholding so much money when homeless funding, when the problem of homelessness was actually happening in the backyards and front yards of cities, not of the state, but in cities. So during the pandemic, the state decided to actually provide some direct funding. And as one outcome of that, we were able to have the county help convert the Vagabond Inn into yet another homeless housing facility. And I believe that has about 70 units. We received council authority finally to build a new permanent shelter here in downtown. I know that was controversial, but I stand by it. It's necessary. But that is not just a replacement shelter, it's also 56 housing units above, right? Permanent supportive housing. And we still administer grants to nonprofits, so we continue that. Now, during COVID, we had to split up the shelter at K Street because the whole thing about COVID was you couldn't congregate people together, right? We needed distancing. So we moved pretty quickly to open a secondary expansion site across the street in the PAL building so we could space people out so that they could remain safe. We implemented a one-stop shop. Well, it's a one-stop program, it's not a shop, where homeless individuals can drop in and access hygiene services, take a shower, get a meal, and connect with service providers. That provides service to about 60 people a week. We partner with the Salvation Army, again, about the street outreach team. And we're continuing with the encampment response. So we're implementing the Housing First strategy. So all that is to sort of summarize all the work and all the progress we've made. The thing about homelessness is it's visible, so people see it. And when it's near you, then you get angry and afraid and upset, all understandably. And people want to jump to simple solutions. And there are no simple solutions. There are solutions, but they require a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of focus, and a lot of money. It took many, many years for this crisis to explode onto our streets and into our parks all over California. And we're not going to fix it overnight, but we focus on the work that we're doing, and we're going to have more housing first facilities throughout the city, right? It can't just be all in one neighborhood. We're going to have to spread it around. If we stay focused on this, we will be able to tackle this problem, but it's not simple, it's not easy, and it's not fast. But we're working on it, and we're making great progress.
I really appreciate that answer that you said, because you highlighted so many things, and I don't think people realize the size of our city and what just happened in LA, where they're criminalizing these homeless encampments, and that was voted on by city council. So I really appreciate you taking the time to list everything that's been doing. I lived in Oxnard for so many years, and it's easy. It's kind of like we're making a puzzle. You can't see that everything's coming together because you're so close to it. But when you take a step back, you're seeing that all these things are being put together. So thank you. And I'll leave the next question to Daniel.
Thank you. Great topics from everybody. And as Manuel mentioned, that there is no prescripted questions. It's all organic that we're doing here tonight. Elidet kind of touched on it during her first comments in regards to the Mello-Roos and CFDs and LMDs. And anybody who knows those acronyms knows that they are the Landscape Maintenance District and the Community Districts as well. There has been a lot of information going out talking about it's almost like a hostile takeover of the city to turn these LMDs into Mello-Rooses. And, we are seeing the same group of people that do a lot of distraction and twist certain words. And of course, they'll probably come after me for even making those comments, but I make the logical, candid comments that because that's the reality. I've had people reach out to me talking about why am I not speaking up against the city and for trying to raise taxes on these specific property owners. But can you talk about what is the true motive of the city when dealing with LMDs and the potential or the possibilities of the conversions to the CFDs?
Right. Be happy to address that. And I'll just, I mean, you know, you started by saying there's a lot of information getting out there, and I have to tell you, I've looked at it. That's not information, that's misinformation. So let's just start with what these things are: LMDs, CFDs, Mello-Roos. So landscape maintenance district, community facilities districts, which is out of the Mello-Roos. What is it? Where did it come from? What does it do? Who is it for? And this all falls after the heels of Prop 13 in California. But an LMD, which is an antiquated and old, outdated mechanism, they are landscape maintenance districts that were created when neighborhoods were built, right? With the understanding that, hey, you want to build a new neighborhood in a city. And by the way, this is California. These are California laws. This is not Oxnard. We didn't create these. We just have them. So if you're going to build a new neighborhood, but we can't get enough property tax after Prop 13 to provide the municipal services that these neighborhoods will need, then you're going to have to bear some of the cost here. So to the developers who want to build these neighborhoods, like, hey, let's figure it out. So the streets that go through your neighborhood obviously have to be public, right? Well, there are some neighborhoods where you can have a private street, but most streets have to be public in the sense that everyone has to be able to drive through them. So then there you have your median strips and your gateways and your entryways and all that, and your trees and your grass and your hedges. So a lot of these LMDs were set up in the 70s and 80s. And part of the problem is, and that was prior to Prop 218, and then eventually later another proposition, I forget what it was. I get the alphabet soup mixed up sometimes. But essentially, they never anticipated that a new law would come out that says you can't increase your annual assessment. So we have LMDs that were formed 40, 50 years ago that are collecting, you know, $40 some a month from a property to help pay for things like maintenance of the landscape, mowing the lawn, mowing the grass, trimming the bushes, trimming the trees, and what have you. But over the decades, the cost of all of those services has gone up. The labor costs have gone up, the fuel costs, the equipment costs. I mean, someone go buy a modern lawnmower today and tell me you can buy it for the same price that you paid in 1970 at the hardware store. Good luck. So a lot of these districts are basically outdated and underfunded, right? So you can't keep up with the maintenance based on what you collect on the same assessment that you've been on for decades. So let's just say, for argument's sake, an LMD is collecting $10,000 a year, but the cost to maintain it because of its geographical size and its various amenities is now $20,000 a year. Well, you can only collect 10. But you need $20,000 worth of work. So what do you want to do? And that's what we're trying to do here by going out to the community. And if anyone wants to take the time to watch the full video, not the edited video of the meetings, it's great, you know, to splice out sound bites and put together a narrative. And frankly, to Mr. Starr and crew, I can splice together a video that looks like they're telling the truth. I could do that, right? But look at the full context. So what is it that we're talking to people about? So here's the options. How do you want to move forward if you don't have enough money to take care of your needs? How do you want to move forward? And the options include do nothing, meaning keep yours at $10,000 a year in the hypothetical, and know that you're not going to have maintenance weekly. right? You have to adjust the services to the price that you can afford. So do nothing except less, except lower quality. Or, yes, this is true, you could convert to a CFD, which is based on the Mello-Roos. You could convert to a CFD, which then would allow you to increase your assessments and get the services you want as that particular neighborhood. Or you could also do a combination of accepting less, doing nothing, and volunteering more. That's possible too. And here's the thing, the residents in each of these districts, they have to choose. The city doesn't make this choice. The residents would have, and the property owners would have to vote on it, right? We're simply providing the options, because you can't say, hey, I'm determined to buy that 1972 lawnmower, and I'm unhappy that the only lawnmower at Home Depot costs 5 times as much today. It doesn't work that way. So that's essentially what we're doing. So are we forcing people to pay more taxes? Absolutely not. We're being realistic about the services you get in your landscape maintenance district, making it clear it's in your hands if you want to change it or not. And that's it. It's really straightforward. So it's really, sad and ridiculous that people are falling for this yet again.
Alex, I had a question about that, and this was actually before your time as city manager, but maybe you got some wind of it. There has been conversations, again, prior to your time here, about the city was collecting, but no services were being rendered.
Mhm.
And what happened to all that money? And if that money was being collected and services weren't being rendered, which meant nobody was being paid, so there should be a stockpile of money. So where is the money? And was the money used somewhere else? Do you have any information in regards?
No, because I don't know how much of that is accurate versus other problems, right? So I've heard that the money was commingled, right? Which is different from what you're telling me now, which is it was just sitting there. And I understand the city undertook an effort to smooth everything back out and put money back into the correct districts. And I've heard that the districts were not managed well, which, if it's all accurate and true, then it happened, right? And my perspective is, okay, so it happened. They did the audit. The auditors dinged us on it. The city made its best effort to restore everything that it could. My job here is, okay, but how are we going forward? Right. So even after you fix all of that, and I understand not everyone is satisfied with the level of the fix, but we are where we are. So now the question is, how do we move forward? Right? Because I keep telling this to people, I don't have a time machine, so I can't go back and fix those things. And frankly, if I had a time machine, I'd go to some other period in history and learn something more interesting. And the other thing with everything that we're trying to do here to make this, not only make City Hall better, but make the community better, is the goals have to be focused on making things better. The goal can't continue to be focused on placing blame, attributing motive, or meting out punishment. I think we're beyond that now. And I've said it before, for those people who they can't get out of the past, or they're only fixated on the rear view mirror, then they're not going anywhere into the future.
What would be the take if the city decided, like, hey, you know what, first, you made a great comment in regards that it's the residents of that community, of the LMD, that makes the ultimate decision as to what happens to that LMD.
Right.
If the residents decide to say, hey, you know what, we don't want an LMD anymore, city, now you have to come take care of our properties. Is that options?
No,
or how does that work?
No, it's not an option, because it was never the city's responsibility. Those were the agreements made in order for those homes to be built. Right? I mean, River Park is the best scenario right now, because I know that's been turned into a controversy. But and you all are young enough to remember that there was nothing there, right? Except, I believe, farmland. So I'm sorry, that's rude to say nothing there. There was not housing and the collection there. There were other uses there. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude to farmland. So in order for all that to be built, all those agreements had to be put in place, including the Melrose CFD. I mean, remember, again, this is state law. These things exist expressly for these reasons. So, you know, and in the short time that I've been here, I hear a lot about the rest of the community complaining about why the city favors River Park. Why does River Park look so nice? Well, here's the answer. Now, the irony is now some people in River Park are complaining that it looks too nice and they don't want that anymore. This is an interesting irony here. It's an interesting turn of events. So all this time when everyone else in Oxnard was complaining about River Park, now I think everyone's starting to understand, yeah, it's because they pay for it, right? Including the schools there, and I was corrected recently, I said 2 schools, the 3 schools there, the parks, the ball fields, all those amenities, the fountains, the trails, all of that. Now, if the community there wants to lower the quality of those amenities, they have a right to do so. They can do that. But it doesn't mean the city now comes in and takes it over, because remember, I mean, that would be the granddaddy of all bait and switches. There's no way that I could justify letting a developer build that kind of facility, say they're going to do a CFD, and then when the people move in, and by the way, everyone who buys property out there knows that there's this CFD, right? They decide, well, we don't want to pay for it anymore. Well, if you don't want to pay for it anymore, that's fine, but then you don't get the services, right? So the city, the rest of us, can't be on the hook for keeping a neighborhood in that condition when the entire premise of building that neighborhood was requiring this CFD. I hope that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I appreciate that information, because there has been that narrative that, oh, the city can just take it on and it's no big deal. But, you know, that you just blatantly put it out there that it was already an agreement in place that this is what it was going to be.
Right.
And now trying to play the old switcheroo afterwards, it's not fair. One more thing that I've heard recently and been seeing a lot about is the fees associated with the consultants. Can you touch a little bit about that? Where are these fees?
Yeah, the Star Camp argues that it's illegal and we can't use those fees to improve the LMDs, and we argue that yes, we can. I mean, here's the thing. Again, many of these LMDs are in fact essentially broken. They're underfunded because they're capped out. They can't change their assessment to be able to provide the services. So we believe we've got to fix that. We've got to at least make an attempt to fix that. So taking the money to go through and do this public process to give the communities a choice is necessary. It's a necessary step to determine what each of the community members in each of these LMDs wants to do. There's a cost associated to that, but it's the cost of making the district better. So we argue that it's an appropriate expenditure. And again, you can't say that we know it's broken and we're not going to do anything about it. That makes no sense either, right? We've got to lay out the options for the community, and in the end, only the community in the particular districts gets to decide, right? I know people pushing the idea that somehow we get to do it. We can't do it, period.
You're basically educating the homeowners in that neighborhood.
Right.
And Star was painting it as that you're doing a whole campaign to convince them to vote one way or another, but that's not what was happening.
Yeah, just look at the actual recordings of the actual community meetings.
No, I do want to talk because you did mention it. So 5 days ago, it was posted, a splice video, sound bites of that meeting.
Mhm.
And the context of it was that the city was forcing CFDs down the throat of people because of that splice
Right.
that they took.
Right.
I think it was like less than 3 seconds that said that ideally
Played over and over.
that was played over, but that it was ideal to have a CFD,
Mhm.
but that they're not forcing
can't-
residents, that residents have to make that decision.
Right, because we can't force that. Right, we can't. It's called a vote. We can't force it. Right, but we have to present the reality and all the choices. And one of the choices is a CFD. Right, and a couple of communities may want that. Some communities may not care, and some may be opposed to it. Doesn't matter.
Mr. Nguyen, so let me chime in real quick and then we can move on. So regarding the consultants, like Daniel said, one of the issues is that why are you spending that money for consultants? So, and they're saying it's illegal. Now, obviously the fact that you're doing it, I mean, you guys would know whether it was legal or not. But let me ask you this question. Why hire consultants? Why don't you have an executive staff? You have regular staff.
Right.
Why can't you guys solve this without consultants?
Right, because this is actually an area of expertise that we don't have in-house. It's very specialized work doing the formulas for all these districts and how the taxation works and doing the square footage of the lots. There's a lot of expertise that goes in here that we don't have day to day. That's in essence why you get consultants for anything.
And
go ahead.
And using the money, because I just want to be clear,
Mhm.
and using that money to hire a consultant is not illegal. Is that correct?
Correct. We believe it is fine and appropriate.
And the people that live in those districts, they have choices. And all you're doing is giving them the choices.
Right, we're
Yeah.
presenting it, but ultimately, they would have to vote on it. If there were enough people to say, hey, we want to try to convert it to a CFD, it's got to go to a vote. It doesn't just happen.
So they do something, they do nothing, or,
Yeah.
right? Simple as that. Okay.
Right.
All right. So moving along, it seems now that Measure O is secured. I mean, I know there, the judge pretty much issued a preliminary decision, but I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, I think that deal is done. But let's say Measure O is a done deal and it's going to continue and it's going to sunset when it was supposed to. And now we have Measure E funds coming in. And then let's not forget we got the stimulus money. So, and then the economy is coming back up and businesses are opening. So there's tax money there. It now seems like we're going to have a lot of money to be able to do what we want to do and to be able to get the city that we all deserve. Now, the thing that people say all the time is roads, roads, roads. We want our roads fixed. I do see, because I drive around Oxnard and I see there's a lot of work being done on our roads, and thank God for that. But my question is, it seems now, and I want you to address this, it seems now that we got the money now to do what we need to do. So there shouldn't be any excuse to no longer have an ugly city. So what do you say to that?
Well, let me start by saying you're right with your last point that not having money, not having the financial means to get the work done is can't be an excuse going forward. It was a reality for a long time, but it's not a thing. But you frame it as if I just won the lottery or scored big in Vegas, and it's not that either. So let me be clear about this. So first of all, thanks to the voters for entrusting City Hall with Measure E. I want to make that really clear. And because of Measure E, we as a city have the first positive budget we've had in over a decade, which is significant. No deficits, no cuts, no reductions, no layoffs. So it's like night and day. So I could not be more grateful about Measure E. But Measure E represents revenue, pardon me, that we needed, right? This is not revenue we wanted. Okay, Measure E is not, I didn't ask the public for Measure E so I can go, you know, build a cathedral or anything like that, right? Measure E was money we always needed. This city has been under-resourced for a long time. I mean, people don't, it's hard to fathom, but it's a big city. Now, not in terms of geography, but in terms of population, the demands for municipal services, and all of our social needs. So we have what we need to restore. And you know, when I presented this year's budget, I made it clear that I see this as the first of 3 restoration budgets. But you can't restore everything in 1 year. You can't make everything better in 1 year. You can't fix everything in 1 year. I mean, the degradation of the city, again, took many years to accumulate. You know, the deferred maintenance, in some areas, perhaps even neglect. That was many, many years in the making. So you can't undo everything overnight. This is not like, you know, that one of those home makeover TV shows where like in 40 minutes, everything is brand new, right? It doesn't work that way. But we are investing Measure E heavily back into the community. And in the early years, certainly this year, we're focused on streets, parks, medians, trees, capital improvement projects, cultural and community services programs for youth and seniors, putting money, additional money into public safety. So we're putting a lot of it back into public safety, community services, cultural services, and then all the things that make the city look good. The hardscapes, the streets, the sidewalks, the alleys, as well as what I call all the green stuff, trees, medians, parks. Now, when you talk about the ARP money, that is a good injection of money, but it's one-time expenditures, right? It's a one-time injection of cash, so it should really be focused on one-time expenditure. In other words, you don't want to take that money and hire 10 people, because you got to pay those 10 people every year, right? And that money's only here one time. So yes, Measure E gets us back to a much better place. It will help us move forward, but Measure E alone isn't going to make the kinds of improvements in this community that I know the city council aspires for and that I'm really focused on. And to your point, Manny, like, you know, the city would be looking good. Yes, we can do that, but it's equally important to me that the city is good, meaning the overall quality of life across the community. And having nice roads and nice parks and well cared for trees is a part of that, but it isn't everything. And I want to focus a lot more, again, on making investments in South Oxnard and looking for ways to invest in getting our community, again, to improve the employability factor of our residents. And at some point, I want to talk more about Oxnard College, because I believe that that is the actual key to this community's future, more so than City Hall. Not that City Hall is irrelevant or unimportant, but
Okay, so and yeah, we'll get to that. But can you assure the people of Oxnard that all this work that's being done, the parks, the roads, it's going to continue? It's not just doing it now to make it look good, and then little by little we're going to go back to the old days of potholes and everything. And I know it's going to take time, okay? But do we have your commitment as a city manager that you're going to continue the move forward to fix our roads, our parks, and do what we need to do to get the city we all deserve.
Okay. So as your city manager today, I can commit to you that you have my commitment, but I can't assure all those things. And here's why. It requires all of you, right? This thing we have here, local democracy, is a two-way street. So I can say, as your city manager, I'm fully committed to all those things. And I'm also really confident that this city council that we have is also committed to it. However, give us the benefit of the doubt and take us at our word, but you still have to stay engaged, and you still have to make sure that if you see us going off the rails somewhere, that you raise the red flag right away, right? But again, it's easy to criticize government. It's easy to point out problems. What's hard is coming together to find the right solutions. And this is where I think public engagement and public participation has really gone off the rails across the country, right? We have become a society of hatred and blame and destruction. We're not so much that society that rebuilds and makes things better, and that part of it is sad. But so if you want assurances that things will continue to improve, I can only assure you that if you all assure me that you also stay engaged, because it's got to be a two-way street. And you'd be a fool to just take my word that, yeah, things will be fine, right?
Well,
you got to watch over me as well.
No, absolutely. And that's why this is live and recorded, and that's why we have it on tape now.
Oh.
But
well, then are you going to commit to it then?
Absolutely. And that's why I created Citizens for a Better Oxnard. That's why Daniel has his show, so that we can inform the people of Oxnard, give them the information they need, not to tell them how to think or tell them what to do, but to encourage them to become active members of the community, go to the city council meetings and so forth. So no, you got our commitment, we got your commitment. And speaking of city council, and again, it's so funny, people would think that we rehearsed all this, but I was actually gonna ask you your opinion of the current makeup of our city council. We have a new mayor, we have a new city council member, Gabe Turan, and then the new mayor is Mayor Zaragoza. So, I mean, I'm not asking you to badmouth anybody, but what do you think of this council? Are you happy with it? I mean, what do you think? What can you tell us?
The only person I'm going to badmouth on this program is you.
That's what I thought.
No.
Hey, I want to just real quick. I know you threw that question out there, Manuel, but I want to kind of go back to that whole Measure E thing. You brought up a good point in regards to the city that we all deserve, and that has been a goal of residents across this city for a long time, even before you coming on board, Alex. But what do you see as Oxnard's potential, and where do you see us, and how do you see us getting to that potential and truly being that city that we all deserve? I know you talked about accountability, not only for yourself and for the city, but that residents themselves have to step up to the plate and hold people accountable that needs to be held accountable. So what do you see as Oxnard's potential and our path getting to the city that we all deserve?
So, and I can actually relate a little bit of Manny's question about the city council in here, because they're crucial. And this also goes back to one of the first questions of why I came here. And part of it has to do with there's so much potential here. Although I do believe for all communities, anywhere you go, there's always more potential. So from that perspective, we're not unique. I think all communities want to get better and be better. I think one of the most important things to begin that discussion is to remember and recognize that while we want to be together and work together and make the community better, we are not all the same, right? And that we are many different people that live in this community. We have different backgrounds, we have different perspectives, we're in different places of our lives generationally, we're in very different places economically, we're in very different places in terms of education. So so it's important to remember that from my perspective and the city hall and city councilor's perspective is we're trying to balance all of those differences. Remember, one of the goals of government is to do the best it can, because it's really hard to treat everyone the same. But so when you look at this idea of what kind of community we deserve, just again, we are a lot of people, and therefore we have very different expectations of what we deserve and what this community ought to be. And I think that's just important to keep in mind. Diversity is real and it matters, right? And so to some people, and I've heard this said in public comment, to some people, an aquatic center, investing in an aquatic center in South Oxnard is a luxury. But I'm not convinced that it's a luxury if you're in South Oxnard resident. So keep that in mind. So with that, I would say the most important thing is how do we elevate the quality of life? And that means many things, and it means different things to different people, but there's always a baseline, there's always a common denominator. Having a healthy community, having a safe community, having a clean community, having an open community, all those things. So it isn't just that the city will look better, right? It's more important to me that the city overall health is better, that the city can be better across the board. So so in addition to better streets, nicer parks and all that, more commerce, more work opportunities for our residents, getting revitalizing the Savior's Corridor, having a vibrant downtown. And these are all things we are very focused on today. But again, as you make this path of progress to improvement, I personally will, and I will always encourage the city council to, we have to keep an eye on what is the path of gentrification, right? And I want to get back to that, is we want to do this in ways that will that will provide opportunities so that our residents who are here today have the opportunity to stay. What I don't want to do is to turn us into some other city that forces our residents out. Right? And that's a very complex challenge, but it's one that I want to rise to. And it gets back to what I was saying before, is the best way for our folks to continue to live here and enjoy the community and be able to pay rent and be able to, go to the stores and the restaurants that they want to, is they have to be more employable. I think it's been the wrong view to think that if we only brought more companies here, right? Because we have a lot of great companies here, and when I speak to their general managers or their CEOs, their common complaint is we can't find qualified employees here. So again, the key is Oxnard College, right? And again, I hope I get to talk about that more. So I think the sky's the limit. I think the potential is deep in terms of the more we can tap into our community. I think there's always the next and the younger generation that will become interested in various issues or various areas. All of this, throw all of this into the mix. But from the City Hall perspective, the key here is that I need to turn this into a high functioning organization, and we're not there yet. We're far from it, but we're on the path to get there. If City Hall succeeds and Oxnard College succeeds, this community will become much better for more people, not just for a few people, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I want to thank you for that, because you made a lot of great points. One of the points was talk about the education, getting people that are qualified into these positions that are already here. That has always been one of my big things about it's fine that we want these well-paying jobs coming into our city, but at the same time, we need to get our people up to that level. And that's what I've advocated at the school district levels, that the school districts kind of have to step up also and take on that role. But a lot of great points that you brought up, and you're right. Our city is over 207,000 residents, different backgrounds, different wants and needs, but there are those common core ones. We want to have a safe community. We want to have a community that we can raise our families in. We want to have a community that we can ultimately shop, live, and play in. And that's ultimately the goal for so many. It's just different paths that we want to take to get to that point. So I appreciate you bringing up those points because it's true, it's the reality. And now I guess we'll jump back to the host's question about city
Right.
council, because I know he's biting his nails to
Yeah.
get that answer.
So Manny, the city council we have right now, I believe, is it's actually really diverse in terms of if you look at city council bodies across any community in California. So we have a diverse group. One of the most important things for me as a city manager, and this has been true since my first year here, that I learned about our city council, both then, the 5-member council then, and remember when I started, this was not yet a district city. It was still an at-large city. And now that we have a total of 7. So the most important thing to me is that of the 7 people that we have, and I say this having worked in 3 other cities, Oakland, Alameda, and Riverside. So bigger cities and smaller cities, much bigger city and smaller cities. I am incredibly grateful for and excited about the fact that I don't have to worry about corruption. And that is petty to serious. Like as I sit here today, I'm not worried about that. And I can tell you in a lot of other communities, that's something city managers have to contend with. So that is one hell of a great place to start when you're a city manager. And from there, I would say the other thing I've learned about all 7 of our elected officials is they all care about the community. And that's also really, really refreshing. And they have different perspectives and in some areas, different interests, but they all care about the community. And they're not afraid. I mean, you've seen them make some very, very difficult votes. I mean, I remember, again, when I presented my first budget, and some of you were there saying, how dare you do this? They made some difficult votes. So they're not afraid to take the bull by the horns. And if you review the council priorities that they just updated recently, I think those reflect the values that this community needs, and going back to what you're saying, Daniel, needs and deserves. So I think we have a tremendous group. I think it's a very diverse group. And again, just watch the council meetings and you'll recognize that. But I'm not worried about any levels of petty corruption or unethical behavior. Again, great starting place for any city manager, and they all really care about this community. So I think I feel very fortunate to have this collection of elected officials.
Okay, well, thank you. And one more quick question, and then I'll pass it on to Elidet. But you recently asked for an extension on your contract. And so how much longer do you want to be our city manager? How much longer do you expect to be our city manager? And are you accomplishing the goals that you wanted to? Do you have still many, many more goals to go? I mean, what's the deal with that?
That's a difficult question, and the how long I'm your city manager is not up to me, right? I mean, that's the blunt answer. How long I'm your city manager is also up to 7 elected officials. So
How
it's
long do
not-
you want to be our city manager?
Okay, well, I wish you just asked me that. For many more years, and I'll tell you why, and it gets into the other part of your questions. What is it that we've done, and what do I want to do? And again, there's a lot to be done here. This community and this city hall organization both have a lot of needs, right? And to get back to that question about, you know, can we get to the city we deserve and we want, and what the future holds? So I've, you know, I can rattle off all the things we have done in the last 3 years. It's a good long list that I'm really proud of, and it consists of teamwork, right? Among, I said this before, the leadership of the council, the executive team, and our hardworking staff. So I don't know if there's time, but maybe I can do it at the end here. There's a long list of things that have happened just in the last 3 years. But there's a lot more that needs to be done. So as a city manager, I am particularly more interested in seeing projects through, seeing policies through. I'm not only interested in introducing interesting ideas, good ideas, you know, fun ideas. I'm also interested in making it work, right? And that's actually the hard part. Like anyone can come up, hey, great idea, let's build an aquatic center, right? And then be like, okay, goodbye, I'm going to the next city, good luck with that. It's actually harder to get it done, right? Because and a lot of the major things, major efforts we want to do here takes time and hard work. So you might recall that I struck a deal with the power plant at Ormond Beach to set aside a $25 million trust fund to actually dismantle the power plant, right? I would really enjoy being here when that happens, because after that, then we have, you know, almost a blank canvas there to really continue and accelerate the restoration of Ormond Beach. So there are major projects like that that I want to see through. Revitalizing downtown, I want to see that through. Now, the market and the economy dictate a lot of that. Revitalizing the Savior's Corridor, I know what needs to be done to make that happen. I want to see that through. Building the Zocalo, yeah, it's a great idea. Now the challenge is, how do we get it done?
How about the harbor? How about the harbor?
Oh, well, the harbor is a different story because the harbor actually belongs to the county. And we can talk about that more if you want specifically. You know, I've introduced this idea about starting the Oxnard Arts Academy. I would love to see that through, right? I introduced this idea about creating the Oxnard Employee Pipeline, and we actually started that during the year of COVID. We actually launched that. So I want to see these things through. And then there's so many other things, right? We still have Campus Park to take care of, right? The harbor, there are issues there on our side in terms of the water quality for the neighborhood there. There's still the former power plant at Mandalay that is just sitting there, and there was no deal made there to dismantle that plant, and that's private property. We still have to finish evolving the golf course so that not only do we no longer need to subsidize it, that it actually starts returning more revenue to us, right? I mean, I would love to see a full-blown golf program there for our kids. That would cost almost nothing for our kids, right? We don't have those things yet. Sports park, right? What are we doing with sports park? College Park, lots to finish there. I mean, there are lots of things to do here in the city that are all exciting, challenging, and that would keep me engaged and excited to come to work every day. And I still have the energy. So, I mean, I am getting older, But I still have the energy for this. So
Yeah, I noticed your hair is a lot grayer than when you started, so.
yeah, I'm just trying to mimic you, man.
Okay, well, we're running out of time, but let me
Sorry.
pass it on to Elidet and then Daniel, and then we'll wrap it up.
I just have a quick question. You talked about the employee pipeline, and I want you to a little bit go into how Amazon plays into that, because I'm not a fan of Amazon. I haven't shopped there in over a year, but I know a lot of people use it. A lot of small businesses use it, and there's been controversy because the city's paying for these ads on Facebook about working at Amazon. I personally don't mind, because I do think it's great that they're focusing on the residents of Oxnard. So what are some positives, or what are some challenges with Amazon coming into the city that would, I guess, make the community feel better about them being in our backyard?
Okay. Well, from my perspective, I don't have any concerns with them coming here. Again, you've got to go to our reality, right? Who are we as a community, and what are our needs, and where are many of our residents currently working? How many of our residents are actually making above minimum wage today? How many of our residents are in jobs today that provide health care? How many of our residents are in jobs today that provide a 401k? How many of our residents are in jobs today that actually give you scheduled time off, or jobs that will actually help you attain further education? Not enough of our residents have that kind of a job. And Amazon represents an opportunity to bring more than 1,500 of those jobs in one shot. Now, I'm not saying that the labor issues with Amazon are good or bad. That's an issue for labor to take on, and I wish labor the best. At some point, someone there will make progress. That's just the evolution in our country in terms of labor rights. So not discussing that, because I can tell you that there are a lot of other jobs in this city, whether it's the other big box stores or a lot of the franchise fast food joints, right? Some of which, by the way, I enjoy. So I'm not being judgmental here. I love McDonald's French fries, but those aren't necessarily the best jobs either, but they're not bad jobs. What I'm talking about here is we have more residents with more needs for this level of a job than we have available to them. So from that perspective, I think it's important for everyone to just get a dose of reality. And Amazon jobs are, I consider them decent jobs for people who it's a stepping stone job, right? Get in there, get some education and move on. Or for some people, like my own mother, who had a job at a grocery store her entire adult life here in this country, never had advancement, right? Because that was what was necessary for her to raise me and my sister. Now, the one thing that was good about that particular job is it did provide health care. And that explains why I have most of my teeth. But so for some people, it's a fine job because it means that the next generation, that their kids will actually have better opportunity because their kids have health care, right? And it lowers, in my mind, the anxiety level for that family just having health care, right? So I think there are a lot of benefits here that anyone who's critical of Amazon, I'm not convinced they're the people who need these jobs, right? It's easy to criticize Amazon if you don't need that job, but we have a lot of people here that need that job. Now, I would have been just as happy if that were Wayfair or Walmart or Target or Home Depot. Anyone wanted to bring that many jobs with that kind of pay and with healthcare, it didn't matter to me who it was. Again, labor disputes will continue, and that's out of our hands. I am not particularly opposed to unionizing there. Again, that's an issue they have to deal with separately. But our working adult community, and I talked about this at a council meeting a while ago, in terms of people who are 25 and over, um, and we have a lot of them in this community, 80% of that segment of our community doesn't have anything beyond high school. So it makes it hard to be employable, right? So, and that's the community we have to work for, not just the other communities that are more critical about landscaping, right? Not that that's not important, but my point is when I talked earlier, in the we that is Oxnard, there are many of us. And my job here is to try to figure out to help the city council improve the quality of life across the board, not just for any particular community.
Mr. City Manager, I'm sorry, we're running out of time.
So can I just say very quickly, so Oxnard College is the key, and the getting back to your question about how did that come about, is we actually did a summit with Oxnard College and about a dozen of the CEOs and general managers of some of the biggest companies here, and they told us what the needs were. And what I learned out of that session was the community college district actually provides classes to fill those gaps, the education and the training. But what I learned that stunned me was not a single one of those classes is being offered on the Oxnard College campus. So I've engaged in a very positive, proactive relationship with the president of Oxnard College, and that's how the birth of the employee pipeline came. So the community college district can provide this training and this education to our community. The problem is if it only occurs in the city of Ventura or in the city of Moore Park, it's much less accessible for our residents, especially residents who are working 1 or 2 jobs now just to make ends meet. But if they can get this minimum training, then they can, in essence, promote to a better job where they can actually perhaps get by and make a decent living only working 1 job, not 2. And I guarantee you, and if it comes with healthcare, I guarantee you the quality of life for that particular person or that family will increase. So that's why I'm very focused on those programs.
Excellent. Sounds positive. That's good news. Daniel, one last quick question with a quick answer.
Well, you know me, I've never been quick about my questions, and they
Why
always
why don't you ask me a question, then we'll technically end the program, then we'll do the after show part. And anyone who wants to continue watching can continue watching.
Well, it's not necessarily a question, because I think the big questions that we really wanted to know, and that was those burning topics on residents' minds, I think got answered. So I guess I'll just give my final comments on the information that was provided tonight. And I want to say thank you to you, Alex. This is not a kiss up, as many people like to paint me as, but this is me being humble in the fact that we have a city manager now that has a vision for our community. A vision that is one to support everybody, not just a small group, but everybody in the city, and for future generations that becomes Oxnardians. A lot of great topics and visions were touched on tonight in regards to how do we get individuals qualified for these jobs that are already here? How do we get people on the right path so that they are able to live in the city? I'm one of those people that live here, but work outside of the city, outside of the county, because I found a better job elsewhere. That pays me the pay that I need, that pays me the health benefits that I need for me and my family. And that is one of the big things that I have always liked about you and your comments in the beginning, your first year, when you said that good jobs are good, but if they don't have health benefits, are they really good? And I agree with that 100%, because that's always a hot topic for so many people, is that health benefit component. So again, not a question, just appreciative that we actually now have a city manager that has a vision for our city, that is not a generic vision, but it's an actual vision, that is developing plans, that has a good executive team, and that is keeping the community engaged as much as possible. And I will also say that I always enjoy when you clap back at certain individuals that put out misinformation. I will never get tired of seeing that. So, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that are shocked by that. But at the end of the day, do we want to be candid or do we want to sugarcoat things? And I prefer candid. I want to see that train coming at me versus saying, well, that train won't be here until next week. No, tell me the bad news so that I know how to prepare for it. So again, no question, just final comments. I appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Elidet, any last comments?
No, just that hopefully when more companies keep coming to our city, that we at least encourage them to not be breaking labor laws. That's it.
Yes, okay, you had to say that, but the state handles labor laws, not us.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, I'm glad that the community is putting pressure on making sure that Amazon is staying there, that the city had its requirements, that they had to come in with the minimum pay, with the health insurance. I'm glad that the community is standing up and saying, well, you better not be doing this and that. And I believe that if Oxnard, Amazon can do it, it's going to set the tone for other Amazon buildings throughout the country.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. Hopefully you got some of your questions answered. Daniel, thank you for being part of this, Elidet as well. And let me just leave with this, Mr. City Manager. A little birdie told me that it was your mom's birthday recently. So I want to wish your mom a happy birthday. If you don't mind me asking, can I ask how old she became?
Yeah, thank you. She turned 90. She turned 90, and we had a lot of relatives come visit, which was the first time she'd seen anyone besides me since before the pandemic. And we had a nice family dinner here in Oxnard. So it was great. It was great. Thanks.
Now, and another thing, if you don't mind me asking, but she lives with you, is that correct?
Yes, Manuel. That's why I'm single. Okay. I know what you're doing.
Is this your business out here?
Is this,
You know, the only reason I asked that or said that was because actually I think it's very rare, and I think it is so cool the fact that your mom lives with you, you take care of her. I mean, God knows you make the money to put her somewhere else, and you don't. I mean, I'm blunt, right? So I don't mind saying it, but I really respect that. I really do, especially as a Mexican, because this is what we do. Mexicans, we take care of our moms no matter what. They live with us, we take care of them the whole bit. You seem to be doing the same thing with your mom. I really think that's very admirable, and I commend you for that. So that, to me, that attests to the kind of person that you are. And then lastly, like Daniel was saying, I too appreciate everything you've done. Hopefully you'll be around for a long time. I hate to end on a bad note, but in the news recently, the last city manager of Oxnard recently resigned from the last place he went to. And, we've had our issues with previous city managers. It does seem like things are working out now. It looks like we have a good team with the city manager, your executive board, the city council. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And like you said, it takes all of us. It's not just you, it's not just your council, it's not just your team, it's the people as well. We need to stay engaged. We need to hold you guys accountable. You are doing a good job, and that I have no problem holding you or anyone else accountable. When it has to be done, it has to be done. And but when there's praise to be given out, then I don't mind doing that as well. And that's what separates me from other people, where they just have one simple agenda, and that's to complain and to complain and to complain. And that no matter what you do, no matter what the city does, it's not good enough. Well, you can't have that mentality. Otherwise, we will never get anywhere. So there's light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you so much for what you're doing. We'll keep doing what we're doing. We'll continue to hold you all accountable. So,
well, thank you. And, I'd love to do this again sometime, because there's so many other topics for this community that we didn't even get to. So, I'd love to come back at some point. There's a lot of other things to discuss.
we definitely, yeah, I still have a list of a ton of questions, and it's already an hour and a half. So, but we'll do it again. And so again, thank you to you, Mr. City Manager Daniel Elidet, and thank you to the people, the members of Citizens for a Better Oxnard, and have a great day.
Manuel, I'll just say real quick, you kind of spilled the tea about Alex, and I don't know if you were trying to sugarcoat it to get his gym membership. I don't think that's working, but it's all fun. But again, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity, and most definitely the group of us. So we do have to get together again and have another conversation, because there was a lot more topics that needed to be touched on.
And this is a cool format. I like this. Not that the one-on-one with you wasn't good, Daniel, but this is also more
okay.
fun.
So I'll
This is
just
fun.
cancel the invitation for next time then. It's cool. It's cool.
This is just fun.
Thank you so much for all the updates. I really enjoy listening to all the progress that the city has done, because we are a large city and we are doing a lot of amazing things. And I think sometimes we forget how amazing it is to even come up with these ideas and then execute them. So thank you so much for that.
Thank
All right,
you.
everybody. Well, thank you once again for joining us. Hopefully it was very informative for you. You have a great day. Stay informed. And don't forget, the best citizen is an informed citizen. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.